I would have usually a 10-hour per week retainer where I would come in and I would be leading the content strategy. Sometimes I would be managing employees. I often manage agencies and freelancers too, but basically put together the content strategy for the company and then help them execute it however that needs to be done. And usually at the end of my engagement, then I'm looking to help them define a role for who their in-house person can be that can take on a lot of what I'm doing. And then I help them even interview and vet all the candidates. So it's just like you had that chief content officer, but you don't have to pay for having a full-time chief content officer and find enough for them to do to keep them excited about coming to work every day. So it's basically you get the opportunity to have that really experienced person, but just for a fraction of their time. I really like to have the cross pollination by having the content leadership role in. Usually, I'll have like two fractional roles that are very different companies. So, like maybe one will be SaaS software, and the other one will be something that's like co-location. So like, technology related on both sides because I have a tendency to do just B2B tech, but very different industries, very different concerns, very different content. Because I think you can learn a lot by what different companies have done and what's worked for them and kind of use that to generate new ideas. So, that having that cross pollination is very important. But it's also nice because it allows me to then have time to go to conferences, to speak at conferences, to build my own network. So that way, when a client has a problem, I know the people that can fix the problem. And I'm able to get the right people in to give the demos. I'm able to get free trials for things because I already know the people that they need to talk to. So I think a lot of it is having that freedom to be out there. Because when I had in-house roles, I barely ever got to go to a conference. And if I did, frequently I wouldn't even be able to sit through all the sessions I wanted to see because there'd be an emergency that I'd have to go back to my room and take care of. So I think, being in this kind of role means that I have the freedom to make sure I am always up to date, that I am out there connecting with people that can help solve the real problems. And I also get to pick who I work with, which is pretty amazing. Frequently, your CEO and the other folks, on your leadership team, they have a lot of work to do. They have a lot of things they're responsible for. And when, you end up in those situations, because I do a lot of executive ghostwriting, it is frequently near impossible to get on the CEO's calendar to do something like have an intake call to talk about a piece of content that you're creating for them as the author. And if you're talking about creating really impactful thought leadership, there has to be a point of view and there has to be the experience from somebody who's trying to be that thought leader. You can't outsource thought leadership to some other person to come up with it because then it's just content. It's like it can be really great content, but that person has to be present. They have to commit the time to, providing the source material, but they also then have to engage with it after it goes live. So when you flip that over and you instead look within your company and you say, what are the content themes that we want to be known for? How can we help our customers? And then who are the people internally that we always go to who have those great ideas, who are, already out there creating content and who have really a good understanding of what the issues are that our customers have. Those people are frequently the best ones to tap for thought leadership because they maybe have a little bit more time. They want to develop themselves, they want to develop their career, and they know that writing or speaking and doing all of those things to build a personal brand, they understand how important those things are. So you're more likely to get that kind of time commitment from them and the ability for them to actually make it work over time. Because thought leadership is not one and done. You can't just spend an hour this week and then be like, okay, I'm done with my thought leadership for the quarter. It just does not work that way. I'm a huge believer in the value of doing competitor content audits because even though in any given industry there are going to be specific, hot issues, there are going to be specific trends, there are going to be specific things that people are talking about, you want to understand which of those things your competitors are talking about, what they're actually known for, and then you want to carve out the space that you can actually own. Unless, of course, you have, a challenger brand and your brand is really about being in the face of those competitors and challenging their perspectives. But that's not most brands. Most brands are trying to be the best solution for a specific, person with a specific need. So in those situations, you got to figure out what can you own, but you also have to understand like what are the platforms or the ways in engaging that really work for your thought leaders. Because there are people who are amazing talkers who can't write for, for the life of them. Or there are people who are fantastic writers and they hate being on video, or they want to throw up at the thought of going out and presenting at even a trade conference. So you have to figure out what the right opportunities are going to be for the right people to reach your audience. And that's going to be different for all the different folks in your team. So I like to, really sit down and have those conversations to find out what did they want to be known for, what are they passionate about and they care about, and where do they want to grow.